Hiya. So this is the triangle video. This is for making the 3D Peyote stitch triangle earrings, which in my shop you will find the pattern and the kit referred to as AMPED, because I feel like they have this super awesome 80s vibe and I'm amped about it. So I called them AMPED. That is how original I am. So this is the color palette for this particular video. It's kind of a sunsetty vibe with these very cool blue purple iris beads, which I love. So I've gone ahead and prepped a couple of the pieces because this video is about showing you the basics for what we're doing, which you should have directions. If you've either purchased the kit or the pattern, you will have some basic step-by-step instructions, and then this video is meant to help you. So all of these are created the same way. I start in the center for my peyote, this style of peyote. I start in the center because I find it easier to create a nice even stitch, and I find my brain wraps around it better. So that is going to be the version that we're doing here. So when you start off in the center, we're starting with 3 beads. There is no knot on your thread. No knot on the thread. We're grabbing our 3 beads and we're going to push them down to the end of the thread, and we're just going to tie it into a little loop. So I do use a knot. I'm going to have about a 1-inch tail on here. 1, 2. So we've got our little 3 beads sitting there with our knot. And now I'm going to take my needle and go through the first bead, quote unquote, but I'm really just going whichever way my thread tends to be pointing. So my thread tends to be pointing up, sort of here. So I'm going to go through that bead because I want to start off without my knot sitting in the way. So do not get bent out of shape about where exactly your threads are sitting and where the beads are sitting for this first row. It's going to get really distracting for you. So 2 beads in this pattern, and currently both of the patterns, the whole center section, so that first start off thing we did and now the first row per se, is all the same color. So what I did there when I added those beads is it doesn't really matter how they're sitting in this first row, but when you pull them taut, they will just kind of sit kind of next to each other, open, in an open format. And then I went through the next bead as I was adding them. 2 more beads. And now I'm working my way around and going through that next bead. And I'm just going to give them a little tappy tap. I'm pinching the tail with my fingers and kind of holding it and helping me control my piece. Okay. So when I pull on this thread, those beads naturally kind of open up in the middle because that's the area of least resistance. So now I'm going to add 2 more, and this is the last 2 for this first row. And I'm going through both beads that are sitting there, okay? I'm going to go through both of these 2 beads. So through one of the beads in my first foundation row and that first bead I added in this row. Those little dudes are twisted, so I'm just going to use my fingers and get them sitting correctly. So, should look like this. I'm going to pinch the whole piece between my fingers and give it a little wriggle just to kind of tighten how that whole thing is sitting. Okay, so my thread is coming out the side here. I am now adding in this particular pattern and the current other pattern I have. If I create more patterns between now and when you're seeing this video, there will be numbers on what row you're on. So right now I'm adding my next 2 beads. In this particular pattern, those are my 2 purple beads. So each time you're adding 2 beads, you're on the corner of the triangle, okay? So each time you're adding the 2 beads in, you're on the corner. Sorry, my leather chair is like making farting sounds, of course. I don't know why it's not doing it when I try to show you. Anyway, each time, if you have not been here before, this is normal. It is like we're just hanging out and you are hearing all the things that come out of my mouth. Okay, welcome. So in the corner, they sit like that. That's when you're putting your 2 beads on. So this is one single bead I'm adding here. And in this particular pattern, it is the same color. Now, this pattern is a really great one for beginning this stitch and kind of getting the idea of it into your brain, because once we've kind of established our little triangle shape, it is very easy to know what color you're going to put next. We're doing 2 purples because this is a corner. So we have 3 corners. Obviously, it's a triangle. And when we pull that straight, they sit like that. So those corners are a herringbone kind of shape, right? The way they sit like that. Got it? So now we're on a straight edge, adding that 1 bead, and that's our little blue bead here. Notice I'm still hanging onto my tail as I rotate it. And now we're in another corner where I'm adding my 2 purple. Do-do-do-do. I know that this will go in and out of focus, which I think we're all used to our phones doing that nowadays, trying to do autofocus. And now I'm adding my 1 bead on this side. So when I'm adding my last bead on each row, you're going through the last 2 beads, right? You're going through the corner that you're on into that. So 2 of them, right? Do, snap. Oh, Peyote stitch is so satisfying for that little like snap into place. So as you can see, we've got our little triangle forming there. Very fun. So this is where it gets a lot easier. Your corners is your next color. So each time you're doing your corner, you're kind of creating the color pattern as you go. So in this pattern, my next color is red. So I'm grabbing my 2 red for my corner and I'm going back in through my other purple. God, that's my leather chair. Why have I not noticed this before? Maybe it's these jeans. Okay. So each time I'm next to a bead in this pattern, I am using this color bead. Okay, so this is my blue bead I'm next to that I'm adding a bead. That is the color I'm adding. So as these colors radiate out, that really helps you know what color you're putting in next. So I'm doing a single bead of blue, a single bead of blue. I'm now back in my corner. So now I'm doing the next color in my row, which is red, right? We're on our corners. So see how they're sitting? We want them to kind of sit facing out, so you can give it a little tap and they will line up like that. It's very satisfying. Now I'm back in next to my blue, so I'm adding another blue. Oh. And another blue. And the purples, we're adding our red. So our corners kind of lead the way for that ombre color progression of this piece. And up the centers, we have our blue. One, 2, and because we're at the end of this row, we're going through 2 beads, right? If you can't do it at the same time, don't panic. I don't want to force and have one of those break, because that is annoying. And Delica beads, any cylinder beads, so Toho, Aiko, or Delica by Mayuki, cylinder beads are a lot thinner than a seed bead is. and what by thinner is like this diameter piece. This is a lot thinner than a round bead is, so they're a lot more delicate. Don't forget these are glass beads. So at the end of each row, I just kind of give each of the tail and the thread a little alternate pull to make sure I'm nice and snug. You can see how nice and satisfying that is as it comes together. So why I pre-did these other pieces is because you're basically just repeating this action over and over as we're growing outwards. Okay, so I'm going to keep going for this piece with you, but it's not necessary for me to show you all of the pieces because we're just repeating this pattern. So again, we're in the corner. I'm going to give that guy a little squish. My next color on this pattern is this nice AB orange or apricot kind of color. Oh, so satisfying. Okay, so here's another example. I am next to this purple, so I know that that's the color I'm adding when I'm stacking this little bead brick here. And I'm next to blue, so I know that in this particular pattern, I'm adding blue. As you do whatever pattern you're on right now, you will get used to what color you're supposed to be adding when. The other color palette I have with this release, it isn't the same all the way around. It's not like a radiating star pattern. It's got a little bit of a different pattern, so you do have to pay a little bit closer attention, but just in a different way than we're doing on this one. So again, we're next to the purple. So these are our straight edges on the triangle. And our corners, so we always add the one bead along our straight edge, and when we get to our corners, when we add 2 beads. Where's my tail? Okay. Adding my 2 AB kind of iris rainbow finish. Iris and rainbow finish are different, by the way, people, just in case. I know sometimes different places kind of call them different things, but they are a very different finish. Iris usually tangent. Okay, I'm doing purple here. Iris is usually a couple colors. So these blue beads with the purple iris, that is a good example of an iris bead. AB, Aurora Borealis, or rainbow, same thing. Those are like a rainbow of colors on them. Iris beads usually just have a couple colors on them, maybe 2, 3 oil slicky kind of colors going with them. Now, this guy doesn't really want to pull, so sometimes, yeah, I've pierced my thread on this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my needle off. I don't need to take my bead off because I just caught a little bit of my thread, which peyote stitch will happen. It will happen because you're working in such close quarters. Don't give yourself a hard time. So I'm going up through my corner bead, and I can't, especially with having the camera in front of me, I can't exactly go through both at the same time. So I'm just doing both of those corner beads one after the other. And now I'm on my next row. So in this pattern, I am again doing another row of that very beautiful glossy AB peachy color. Now I am next to a red, so I'm going to be adding a red here. Oh, that leather chair is driving me nuts. Now I'm adding blue. Almost pierced my thread there. And another blue. And then a red. And then we are at our first corner. So we're adding the 2. I guess that's kind of our second corner. I'm just going to give it a little tappy tap, and that's when it goes and sits in the right way. This color palette I created because it reminds me of like the old 80s surf shop shirts or like O'Neill shirts and stuff like that. That very kind of retro sunsetty vibe. I like it. Now blue. And another blue. And now we're next to the red. And now this is our last corner on this row. So we're adding our 2 beads. Tappy tap. And they sit nicely. So then we're going to do our red. If you ever see a little bit of a chip in one of your beads that you're grabbing, do not use it. If it looks wonky or funny, don't use it, because delicas are so much more delicate. Before any cylinder beads are a lot more delicate. You don't want there to be an already flaw in it when you're having to go through a bead multiple times, because that's going to cause a stress point that then is going to much more easily break. Sure, we're going to stick with that. So go up, through, down, through, whichever, depending on which way you're holding your beadwork. Okay. So I actually have 2 more rows of this one to do, right? Correct. 2 more rows. There's this row and then our final row. And then we are going to do the sewing up of all of this, which is very fun. Oh, that I just grabbed the wrong bead because you know what? Distracted. Very distracted. So I'm next to that peach AB bead. I'm next to the purpley bead, blue bead. It was very hard for me not to like chit chat on tangents because you guys aren't actually here, so I don't have you to like chit chat with. So I like have the tendency to start wanting to tell stories and like go off on a tangent because I have ADD and that's what I do. Welcome. So this is getting a bit long and annoying. I'm going to just take a little pause. When that gets a bit long and annoying, so it's really only to help you keep this base nice and stable. Once I get it big enough, I'm going to cut this off and I'm going to leave it at about 1/4 of an inch on there. Okay. I find when I burn my ends on these pieces, which we're not doing, when I do burn my ends on these pieces, they form the little knot right up against the beadwork, which means I can see it a lot more obviously from the good side of it, and we don't want that. So we just cut it to about 1/4 of an inch. I wouldn't cut it less than that. Ta-da! That's my tidbit of information. So back to copying our pattern. I've got purple that I'm next to here. Blue. I really love the 80s vibe that it's kind of modern and kind of 80s, that the 3D peyote triangles give, which is why I really leaned into the 80s design when I was designing the pattern and color palette for these. I personally think it's pretty rad, so that's what I'm going with. But once you are confident with doing these yourself, I really suggest I will have graphs up on my shop where you can then go and create your own triangles, and I really encourage you to play with some of the pattern options on there, because when you're playing with a peyote stitch and kind of the 3 corners, it can be really fun. Not super flexible, but fun. Embrace the kind of modern feel of it, which is nice to kind of stretch your beading wings sometimes and challenge yourself. Okay. So we are about to start maybe one of these days, we're about to start our last row. I'm exiting out through my corner here. So the difference between the front and the back on your pieces is 1 row. It's just 1 row. So these 2 currently are the same. I'm going to be adding 1 more row on this so that when I zip it up, the row that I'm adding is actually all those beads that are going to go between. Okay? And it's our corner beads. So that's the difference between the front and the back on this one. You can see that they line up all ready to be zipped up. Now the front is the one with the corner beads. The back is the one without. That way when you're looking at your piece from the front, it looks nice and finished with those corners on there. And so now we're doing the front for this. One of the steps in here is going to be if adding your ear hook. Now, because I fully expect that this video, I'm going to do a little addendum to it later, you can add your little post back through here to make these into post backs. That is not what I'm doing in this video. This video I'm doing ear hooks in them. So I will do a little addendum later when I add the kits with the post backs on them. So in this case, it doesn't really matter which corner I put my ear hook on because all my corners look the same. I'm not gonna put it on the first one. I'm gonna start into this first row showing you what we're doing. So we're putting one bead in our corner because we're kind of finishing off our corners. That's our little anchor bead. And then I'm going around and adding one more row of whatever color I'm next to here. So in this case, we've got the peach, then the red. Now we've got a blue. Ooh. Another blue. And a red. And now, corner bead. Just one little corner bead. Okay, he's not sitting quite right. He's a bit twisted. There we go. He's sitting right now. And we're going to go one more. And red. And when I get to that far corner that I'm heading to right now, I'm going to add that ear hook. Now, this is the only time it really matters, other than when we're sewing it up, which is your front and which is your back. So look for your little tail. I don't see my tail there. It's actually really hard to see my tail. I can see my little tail is on that side. So when I'm adding my ear hook, I want to make sure that my tail is going to be on the inside of my piece. So I'm going to make sure that the ear hook is facing away from that tail. My brain had to wrap around that for a second because I'm going to be sewing a back onto this. Okay, that's my front side. So I want this to be the back of my ear hook is going to be on the same side as the back thread bit. Through there. Now don't panic. It's not just one thread holding that on. We're going to add another thread in a few minutes. So now I'm going down the other side, adding more beads. And we don't want to pull it crazy tight because we want this to have a little bit of flexibility, okay? But also we don't want it to be loose. We don't want it to have too much movement either. So snug, snug tension. We're going to pretend like my phone did not buzz a second ago. And that my leather chair is not farting. Okay, so on this last corner, I am going to go through my corner bead because that's going to be where we start kind of sewing him up. Okay, so we have our front, we have our back, we have this one's a back because it has no corner piece, and then this one's our front because it has corner pieces. Okay, so we're going to be sewing this all up. What we're going to do first is as you're moving forward and you're doing your other pieces, because you're going to keep going from here and creating your 4 pieces for each earring. So this is one earring. I personally, when I'm sitting and working on a project like this, I would go create my 2 of these, create my 2 of these, create my 2 of these, and create my 2 of these. Okay. But I have this one already done because I needed to show you, like, hey, look at this. This is your finished piece. when you create one of the smaller pieces, so one of your back pieces, front piece again has the corners, back piece does not. When you create one of these back pieces, you're going to have a long piece of thread left. We are using that as a little placeholder for sewing our front to backs. Okay, I'm going to explain what I mean here in a second. Un momento. Okay, I just had to wipe my hands off. They're getting sweaty. Anywho, here's our little holder piece. So this is my trick on how I personally get all of it sewn together and lined up nicely. Oh, I definitely need my glasses for this. Oh, I got it on there. Nice. Okay, so this is that extra piece of thread I was talking about. What we are going to do is we are going to tack these together, not those two. You are either going to grab you're going to grab your front, and you're going to tack them together. Okay. So this is going to be used to tack them. Now, if you've ever done quilting, for example, or some sewing, you've tacked things, I'm sure, before. So this is going to help us connect the top and bottoms, as well as find that center line when we're sewing up our front to our back. So right now we're taking our two front pieces. There's no like front and back of these pieces at the moment. You need to look for your threads. That's what matters. So my threads are both on these sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to face the threads towards each other. Okay. That's all that matters, is that I either have them both away from each other or both towards each other. And I am picking to do them towards each other. No knot. Okay. I am choosing a little section. Now I suggest going from the AB peach to the AB peach here, not frosted. You don't want to go the whole way across. You just want to do a section of it. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to zip this up. So I'm alternating, just like those pieces alternate. I'm alternating between one and the other. And I have to be really careful I don't pull my thread all the way through. So I can have, say, 3-inch tail there. I'm going back to front, back to front. And I mean back to front as far as like what I'm holding. These are both front pieces. I'm just zipping through. You'll see that the beads actually kind of line up to interlock. And I'm just going between the beads that are sitting highest to interlock. There's a lot of thread mess here, so I'm hoping you are seeing this and kind of understanding. And if you have questions, you can look at your diagram. So I have now gone through all those. I took my needle off. I'm going to just pull this and pull that. Okay. It should be able to slide back and forth through a little bit. So lots of threads happening here. This is my thread that just kind of zipped the two pieces together, right? So there's my thread, there's my thread. So this is the front of my piece. This is the inside of my piece. Now we're going to zip it up. So you can choose to start with your top or bottom, whichever you feel more comfortable with. I'm going to start with my top because it's nice and small, and I find it easier to start with my top. Once you've done this a few times, you can do whatever you like. So I'm going to grab the thread that is attached to my front top piece because I left that little tail there. When I made my back top and my back bottom, I wove my threads back through and have them coming back out. And those are the insides of those pieces, okay? So I have my thread on my needle, my top front piece, top back piece. I'm going to look for my little tail threads. There's my tail threads. And I'm going to make sure the tail threads are facing inwards towards each other. So, yes, there's a lot of threads here. You got this. It's okay. You can pull them behind and grab them with your finger if you want, whatever works for you. So, I'm coming out of a corner bead on my front piece, and I'm going to go down through, we're zipping it up, okay? Down through my bead on my back piece, front piece, back piece, front piece, and I'm going to give them a little snug pull because I don't want to wait till the very end to give them a pull. So my next one is that purple one. Now, you do have to be really careful. This is why this is sitting on an intermediate level kit. Not to be going through the wrong bead or accidentally going through multiple beads and not noticing and your thread starts getting jumbled up. This does take a little bit more patience and thought as you're doing this. So my next bead is on the front one sticking up, my blue one on the back piece, another front blue one. And if you're ever not totally sure what bead you should be grabbing off of the front piece, these that are attached, you can let that thread, the tacking thread, go a little bit so that you can see which one it is. But you'll be able to tell from the ones that you're grabbing here. So I'm grabbing the purple, so I know the alternating one is going to be red over here. And I find going at a bit of an angle through it helps me not pierce other beads. So again, I'm going to give it a little pull to be seaming them up. Going through this apricot bead, and I don't want to pierce my little tack thread, so I'm pinching it down with my other finger. Now I'm coming around my corner. Okay, so we're going into the front, back. There's no corner bead on my back, so that's where this corner bead on my front piece, I'm going through it to kind of encourage it to come back and be part of this corner. And I'm going down through the corner bead on the back, and I'm going to give it a snug pull again. Okay, and we're just going around and zipping it all up. When we get to where our ear hook is, yeah, you're going to be getting caught in a lot of threads and a lot of beading pieces, and the more you bead, the more patience you need to have. And I just pierced my thread, so I'm going to back out and pull my thread away. It is very hard to be beading while recording because there's a bunch of stuff between me and my beadwork. And normally when I'm beading, there's not. So again, I'm going to give it a little pull so that they pull together. Oh, see? This is what I don't want you having happen. I went through that other bead. You don't want to do that and not notice and keep going and then look back and be like, what the heck where'd that thread come from? Very often I will see beadwork where somebody obviously has not noticed their thread got caught up somewhere along the way and they kept going, and then by the time you're done, you look back and you think, now what do I do? So slow and steady as you go. So as we're approaching this corner, so our ear hook is sort of like our corner bead in this example. Okay, so I've come out of the corner on the back. I'm going to go through that and down through the other corner bead on the back. I guess not really corner bead, but you know what I mean. The like little friends, the neighbors, the corner neighbors. And we're going down our last little stretch here. Give it a little pull. He can still move, so that's great. Don't want to pierce our thread. I jumped way too far ahead. That's again a good pay attention. Make sure you're not leaving threads hanging around all over the place. Normally, I just bead quietly. Don't talk to anybody so I don't make mistakes. There we go. Through the purple one. Through the blue. If you really want to get fancy and you aren't nervous, you can go back and forth like this, zipping it up, front and back at the same time. I am not going to teach you to do that or suggest you do that because you're putting more stress on your delica beads, on your cylinder beads when you do that. And I would hate for you to get this far and have a bead break. That'd be super sucky. Although it is kind of easier to fix a bead in Peyote than it is some of the other stitches if you notice it when it happens. Okay, now we're at our corner. I'm going through him again. You know what? I am going to loop through that guy again. And now we're just hiding it. So I want to make sure I'm looking at my back, which I am. This is the front of my ear hook. So I'm looking at my back. And I'm going to weave down my back side a little bit to hide my bead. Now be really careful because you will have a bunch of threads through here. And this, my friends, is when beads break. And then you have to go take a time out to have a little cry, maybe some ice cream or a tea, and then come back and deal with it. I'm kind of more of a savory person, but lately I've been eating these cookies that have dates in them. Oh, they're so good. It's so bad. Anyway, green tea is my favorite tea. Green chai tea. Oh, I drink a lot of that. Well, during the day. After 4, I don't. Anywho, see? Tangents. So I've buried it in there a bit. Don't worry about seeing this little zipper. That is our tacking thread that you're seeing. Because if you pull it, you'll see that pops back in. So I've pulled that. I feel relatively confident that I've gone in far enough. And now I am going to pull nice and tight with my scissors against there and snip it as close as I can. Okay? So now, see how cool that looks with the little 3D look? So now we're going to do the bottom section. It's going to be the exact same as your top section. So you are not going to watch me do all this, okay? You have the idea. You know what you got to do. You're going to zip it all up. Find your little beads as you do this. I'll maybe get you through part of this. And then I'm going to fast forward and you're going to keep going. You can pause the video. So I'm making sure I have my threads. Those are going to be facing inside. I'm holding my pieces together. I've got my needle on the correct thread here, right? Because there's my tacking thread and here's my thread off of my bottom piece. Ooh, wait, I do have to show you more stuff. I was going to take off on you and then I would have realized I needed to come back to you. Anyway, I'm going to begin this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to sew up 2 sides of it and we're going to meet when you're done 2 sides of it, okay? So I've come out the top of this, so I need to go in through that one. And there is no right or wrong way to hold it. Whatever way works for you to be able to kind of see the beads efficiently. So currently, because I've got cameras in front of me, this is how I'm going to hold it. Oh, and make sure I'm on the screen because that's something I sometimes don't do. And for any of you cussing me out because I've gone off the screen on old videos, I do plan on redoing those videos, and I'm actually hoping to do that this month. This month being March, and I'm saying that so that you guys can remind me if I don't. What you guys love to do. And zipping, zipping, zipping. Now, my thumb is under this, which is why that's kind of in an annoying position, but I'm going to hold him down. So I've started, so I'm going to give it a little pull to get them kind of close together there. Through my zippy actions. The easiest way to know what bead you're supposed to go through is because it should be the alternate to the one you just went through, right? You're going like A, B, A, B, A, B. So I just went through the purple, so I know this one is the blue. This one should be the center blue. This one's going to be the other last blue in that row. And I'm going to give it a little pull again. You should see them kind of come together. If you aren't seeing them come together, open it up. And when you pull, it gives them more room to come together, okay? Now I'm going to fold it again. Folding it kind of makes the beads more obvious and gives you more access to them. Which, in order to not put pressure on the delica beads, when doing this and have them snap, you want to create a situation that isn't odd angles and creating pressure situations for your cylinder beads. And the thread got caught, so we're gonna pull it off. And I'm going to tighten it again. I love it when, I think this is part of why I like peyote, is when it's peyote bead stitch, not the cactus. Is peyote a cactus? Yeah, it is. Anyway, why I like peyote stitch is because it creates this like fabric of beads, more so than I feel like brick stitch does. Not gonna poop on brick stitch, but peyote is my favorite. So again, I'm going to give this a little pull so that whole top piece is nice and snugly put together. And now I'm going to go down this other corner. So you don't really need me here for this. You know what you're doing. You're zipping it up. So I'm going to meet you when you get to that other corner. Don't panic about if you go around the corner, you don't go around the corner. We're going to meet down at that other corner, okay? I personally am going to go around the corner a little bit and then meet you, okay? See you in a second. Okay, so I've gotten to my other corner, which means I have one side open. You have two little black squares. They feel like really packed felt in your kit. You are going to fold it in half, so it's a little triangle, and nub off the sides, okay? Just nick off the sides a little bit. Now, this you're going to place in your piece flat side up inside there so that it creates a little bit of push on your piece to help fill in that 3D. Different people use different things. I had some of this around, so I thought I would include it for you. So now you're going to sew up, continue sewing up the last little bit of this. And I will meet you up at the top. You're going to bury your thread the same. Oh God, I'm going to fix this while you go to the top. You're going to bury your thread the same way that we buried the thread on the last piece around the back, okay? I'm going to fix this. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so I'm coming around to my back side here. I'm going to bury my needle, or not my needle, my thread. I'm going to bury my thread back here where we won't, see the little itty bitty bit of tail. This is just how I'm doing it. You may decide to do it a different way. That's why the internet is amazing, is there's so many different people telling you exactly how you should do things. I'm just trying to give you the way I do it. And if you like it, you use it. And if you find a different way that you like better, then I want you to use that. I want you to find all the greatest videos that work for you so that you get excited about beading and then can create your own awesomeness from there. Ta-da! There's my pep talk for today. Okay. This feels nice and snug. I'm going to, so sometimes if it feels not quite as snug, you can go in a little further. So on this one, I'm going to go until I get, nope, that feels too snug. So because that feels very snug and I don't want to break a bead, we're stopping there. Pull nice and tight and take my needle off. So now we have got our little tacking thread, our little tack thread. we are going to bury that. We're going to leave that as our little attachment buddy. So I put my needle on one end. That's not what I did. I'm going to put it on one end. And in this case, it's coming out of a bead on my top portion. So I'm going to continue by putting it through some more beads on my top portion. And you are going to actually feel around for what ones feel like they're not dodgy. Okay, friends? Not dodgy. You do not want to stick your needle through a bead and find it to be a little too tight. Snap the bead right when you're at the end, because guess what? Guess what, guys? Murphy's Law is that is when you're going to do it, is at the end. Now, my thread got caught around a bead there, so I want to make sure I catch that and pull that tight so he's hidden inside. We're going to go through this little friend. Nope. Just one of the friends. Nope, just one friend. Oh my god. Of course this is happening when you're watching me. One friend. Pull. My hands are so sweaty. This makes me so nervous. Oh my god. This is when beads are going to break, so my hands are half sweaty because of that, and my hands are half sweaty because I'm shooting a video. And they always get sweaty. Okay, so because this is the thread that is keeping your top and your bottom pieces attached, you are going to double back on yourself, okay? So what I mean by that is these beads, these little silver line purples and the blues, have less coating, and I find that the matte beads are a little bit more delicate as far as like if they're going to break. So I'm going to go into this blue bead because I do find that they have a little bit more room, like a room for another passage of your thread. So I went up through this blue bead. Okay, I'm going to go down through the buddy next to him. Oh, almost lost my thread. And then I'm going to go up through him again. So I'm doubling, my thread is doubling back on itself. And then I'm going to bury it through one more bead. Okay. This is where I'm going to cut this one off, and I'm making sure that that is pulled snug and that one gets cut off. And I am on the back side of my piece this whole time. Okay. Now I'm going to do that same with the other one, and I'm going to make sure this is pulled nice and tight first. I'm telling you, I'm having sweaty hands right now. It's helping threading the needle, but it's not helping holding the piece. I don't get sweaty hands, like, other than when I'm doing these videos. It's actually kind of hilarious. So, we're doing the same thing on this side. Again, of course, if we're doing the same thing on this side, my thread got caught on this side. Murphy's Law. So I'm going to work my way up a little bit. Now, I know that I buried thread here, so I don't want to go into that exact same section to be trying to do this little back off, right? So once I safely get through this red guy, I'm going to do it around these purple beads. So up through this purple bead, we're going to go down through his little neighbor, buddy, friend. Ooh, that feels snug. Might be how I'm angled. Oh, it was how I was angled. Ooh. Never force your needle and thread with delicas. Any beads, really, but delicas especially. They will break on you. Oh, they will break on you. They will break on you just like your neighbor's sister who does not know you and will totally tell the cops what she saw. Been watching too many murder documentaries. Okay. I'm gonna go through this last bead. Am I? Feels a little snug. Oh, he feels okay. So we're going through this last bead. I'm kind of pushing the one it's trying to go through with my nail so that he doesn't go through there. He really wants to go through there. Okay, we're going to go at a little different angle then. He just keeps wanting to go through another bead, and I don't want him to. Oh, there we go. And you just don't want to force too much. Pull on that. Nice and taut as I'm cutting. And you guys, we created earrings. How exciting is that? Super exciting. Thank you for playing along. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you on the next one. Bye.